Hey guys, it's Levi Gates and welcome back to DETALKS. With me, we have some RUPES products, some pads, some compounds and polishes, and some machines. And Mr. Dylan Von Kleist.
Hey,
how are you, my brother?
I am fantastic, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, welcome. This is fun. Well, everybody's seen the 21.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure. And everybody's seen the 15 here.
Mm-hmm.
And but we've got some other stuff. We've got pads, we've got products.
Yep.
And we've got more stuff to come.
Yeah, there's new stuff coming. But this one I want to really answer a couple of key questions that you've probably been asked these. I get asked these a lot. So kind of run through these kind of in my head what I think are the most commonly asked questions, right? So I'd say first one, let's talk about Mark II versus ES. We've got Mark II tools here.
Yep.
And I get emailed pretty regularly. People want to know what we did different, what's new about them. And they've been actually out they've been in the market for a few years now as the Mark II version. Basically, the headline on this is 30% more power.
Right.
Or 30% more efficient, I should say, because it actually uses the same 500 watt motor as the original ES tool. It consumes 500 watts, but it actually puts 30% more power down to the working surface. So you got a lot more torque, a lot more power. There's some ergonomic upgrades as well. You get rubberized grips and the tool rest that you're showing here, how that sits.
Yep.
But essentially, that's the main thing. It's a more refined but more powerful tool. Yeah. So really that is the headline of the whole thing. We didn't rewrite the book. We just basically took an evolutionary step, gave people a little bit more power. And generally, we do teach a technique with the Mark II tools that you're going to want to operate in a lower speed range for most stuff. Usually in 3 to 4 is your kind of sweet spot. 5 and 6 are kind of those turbo mode for when you need the extra go. But these tools really do operate, and they're best at 3 to 4. You get the best balance, the best correction, all those things, and you reduce the wear on the pads and the consumables because the amount of torque you're putting out can really wear out pads quickly. The other one is do I get a 15 or a 21?
Right. Okay. That's always been, I had one of each. Mm-hmm. And so for me, what I found worked, and you can tell me if I'm crazy or not, but I'd use a 5-inch backing plate on a 21.
Oh, how dare you. We're not saying that you can't do that. We're just saying that that's your prerogative.
The tools are designed to work with their.
They are, and the motors, the electronics, and everything are tuned specifically to that size, that size pad, the weight, and everything that comes with it. So while there are many guys out there who do manipulate and go with a smaller backing plate, when it will work. You are going to experience higher vibration levels. You are going to probably have some weird electronics issues because the tool is still assuming it has a bigger, heavier pad on it. So it's ramping up based on that, and it doesn't know that it's been swapped to a smaller diameter plate. But it happens. We don't encourage it, but it's not like it's going to void your warranty if you do it. It's just be aware that it's going to probably cause some issues beyond how it was designed.
And again, it goes back to having all the right tools in your tool chest. You just get both, and then you have. Yeah, and you've got one of each.
I do generally tell people, if you were to ask everybody, all the sales guys in RUPES USA, what their favorite tool is, they're going to point to the 15.
Yeah. And I've found that my guys in my shop fight over it.
Yeah, and there's a debate and probably a misunderstanding in the market. A lot of people assume that the 21 is actually the better correction tool, and the fact of the matter is, while it has larger orbit, it gets its correction power from the size of its orbit. The 15 millimeter has still a 15 millimeter orbit, but then it runs at a higher oscillation or RPM. Okay. So basically, if we were to take these tables and you were going to polish that table and I was going to polish this one and it was a race to finish, in terms of the amount of correction it would do, it would be a dead heat. The only advantage the 21 really gets is it's going to cover much larger surface area with a bigger pad, obviously a bigger stroke. So for large areas, the 21 is going to have an advantage. But where the 21 falls behind, like you said, is you got to get into a contour or something. The 15's got a more optimized size, not just the pad, but also you got to consider the orbit. So you're not karate chopping that adjacent surface with this huge 21 millimeter. You can work closer to edges and things like that. So
it can keep that pad rotating.
And I always like to point out, if you want to hold up the 15, and I'll hold up the 21, but notice only one of these tools actually says detailing on the head of it.
Oh yeah, this one does.
So the 15 is actually the one that's designated to be the detailer's tool.
I wondered what that was for.
Yeah, and it's not that the 21 can't be used for detailing, but the 15, it's really what it's designed for. We find a lot of use, actually, of the 21 finds traction in body shops. Guys who are going from rotary and doing full panel refinishing, they want large orbit and they want to cover large areas real quickly. They're not worried about doing contours and working in between mirrors because they're doing panel off. They're doing a hood that's not on the car anymore, so they don't have to worry about a wiper cowl. So that answers two of the big ones about the tools.
That makes sense. I never Never knew that.
Yeah, so it's funny. It's just a word. I mean, it's printed on there, and it's not printed on this one, but it is. There's the little subtle hint in there that why we do it. And I encourage anybody who's like a big, I got to have the 21. Try a 15. It is the more precise of the two tools. I feel it's my favorite. Universally in the company, it's kind of the 15 is the favorite.
Right.
21 is great, but the 15 is kind of that really sweet spot for detailing.
Yeah, it gets covers all the bases. If you did have to have only one tool, get this one.
Yep, exactly.
That's cool. And then I like that, the more ergonomic stuff, the bump stop here.
Yeah.
So
tool
that
rest
makes it, tool rest.
We think about these kind of things, little small touches that makes life easier, right? So there's a lot also misunderstanding around our compound and pad system. And you would see these tools packaged with these kind of pads and these compounds in what is called our deluxe kit. It comes in a bag with all this stuff. And the first assumption a lot of people make is, well, it's a 4-step system.
Right.
Which couldn't be further from the truth.
Right, it's not.
No, it's really designed that any one of these compounds with the corresponding pad, which if you notice, they're color-coded to each of them. So blue pad, blue compound, right? That system is designed to be in a coarse category, so it cuts really heavy defects, but it's designed to finish down extremely clean. So in worst case, we say our system is a 2-step. You probably would use either blue followed by yellow or green followed by yellow, something like that. In some scenarios, depending on the paint system, you can actually, I regularly finish down with just the coarse compound. It's all designed around the idea of being as few steps as possible, ideally one. And if you get the system set up correctly, you have your technique on point, and you're working on a fairly common medium of the road hardness kind of paint, you can finish quite easily down from something like a 1,500 to 2,000 grit sanding mark down to wax ready in one step.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it confuses people, and it's we've all been conditioned over the years through detailing. It's a multi-step process, and It's really not.
Well, you're using this as basically as a lubricant at that point.
Yeah.
And you're dictating the amount of finish and or cut.
Yep, exactly.
Foam, which is realistically it's the most efficient way, because then you don't always have to start with the hardest.
Yeah.
You can start with something fine and just start with some,
step
yourself up. So you don't have to say purchase all 4. You can have one if one will do it, or if there's that finicky paint.
Yeah.
Which is what I did.
Yeah.
I would always have 1 or 2 of the products and a couple of different pads to play with.
You find that combination that works, because there's always going to be that one outlier that you can't use. Jason Rose, my colleague, likes to say, says the only wrong technique is the technique that you use exactly the same on every single car, because no two situations, no two defects are alike.
Well, and some of the early Teslas, it was literally panel, panel, panel. It felt like it was painted by 20 different guys.
Yeah.
And so you'd get one panel done, and you're like, wow, that came out great. And then you go to the next door, and that wouldn't work. Nothing would work, and you'd have to change your entire setup. And then you go to the fender. Once you got that done, you're finished, and you go to the fender, and it's something completely different.
Yeah, I thought I had this figured out. Yeah. So
that was very hard on those first gen Teslas. You couldn't get through a car right without. Yeah. You couldn't do that one step. So if you were in a production setting, or you only had, this 2 types of pads and 1 compound and 1 polisher, you weren't going to get through it.
You weren't going to get what you wanted out of it. Yeah.
So
that kind of covers the system. The other thing I think it's key to mention is that we do actually, these foams are proprietary, and they're actually designed and cut in the way that they are, and the constructive materials that are designed to optimize orbital movement.
Right.
A lot of times the commonly used, everybody's got them available, like the omnipresent orange pad. There's an orange pad from everybody, and they all kind of seem to be the same foam. That foam is great on certain tools. It does really, really not perform well on a large orbit tool because it has too much flex. So you notice in our pads, like specifically the green and the blue, they're extremely rigid, right? Well, the reason for that is we're translating maximum amount of movement from the tool to paint. What's the point of having a 21 millimeter movement or a 15 millimeter movement? Yeah, if it gets up here and it's 15 millimeters, but by the time it gets to the paint, it's half that or less, you've neutered the movement, you're losing some of the performance. So the foams are actually specifically spec'd out to translate the maximum amount of movement for polishing. We want to get that from the tool to the paint, because if it's lost in translation, it does you no good. So while there are, we always encourage people, you can experiment and mix and match, and detailers are tinkerers, and we like to, I'm going to try this with this and put it on my RUPES and see what happens. but do understand that there is we're not just randomly picking colors of foam and hoping they work. There was some science and design and engineering that goes into this that makes sure that our pads and compounds are actually optimized
you're getting
to the
everything
tool. Yeah.
The way it's supposed to be.
Predictable results and how they should be. But this is we have an ever expanding product line, and as we kind of hinted at the beginning, there's new things coming down the pipeline. They're going to make it even bigger, but it does get rather confusing when there's all these different compounds, all these different pads. To kind of sit down and explain, this is a good message to get out to your viewers, because I think they'll.
I think everybody needs to know this, regardless of whether you've been using the products for the last 5 years or not. It's good to always have that refresher, because I like to be able to review that. I like to be able to go back and go to hold on a second, wait a minute, we got to double check.
Yeah.
Even if I've been doing it for years, it's nice to go, holy cow, I didn't realize this, or I didn't realize that.
Yep.
So, and the other thing on these guys, cord care is important.
Yeah.
I hit myself in the head with that. Cord care is important. The way that you store the machine, do not pinch it tight.
Yep.
And then wrap it around the machine.
Yeah, don't do these, because this strain relief here, there is a connection in there that can get broken. Don't pull on the cord, and definitely do not wrap the cord tightly around the body of the tool. I like to make an analogy. I always like to draw a picture for people, things that they can understand, because it's hard to picture that there's copper wire inside of a cord. Right. But as a kid, everybody got you'd take a paper clip while you were bored in school, and you would bend and unbend it a number of times. And after so many times of taking that bend and unbending it, it would always break, right? Same principle here. I mean, the copper in these cords is more flexible than a paper clip, but the same principle applies. You take a piece of metal and you bend it very sharply over and over and over again.
Well, and if you think about it, if there are guys in high production settings that are utilizing these machines, and they get done, they finish, they wrap it, put it down. Another guy grabs it, picks it up, does it, wraps it, puts it back, and it goes back every time. Maybe it's getting used from anywhere from 5 to 10 times a day. 6-7 days a week. It starts to, a month all of a sudden is hundreds of uses. Yeah,
and it only takes just making that one point a little weak, and once it separates, it's not getting current to the tool, and your tool's dead. And we get calls, and guys are going, it's just stopped working. I don't know why. Generally, we'll get them in, we do an inspection of the cord, and there's a spot where the cord is either the strain relief has been yanked on pretty good, or the cord itself has been flexed so many times. You can see like a light-colored spot where even the casing is starting to get worn away from it being wrapped so tightly. So we just recommend, big loose loops. It doesn't have to be, understand the obsession with keeping things neat and tidy and uniform, but for the preservation of your tool, it makes sense to do just nice loose loops. Use a cord keeper or something like that. Clip it and store it nicely, and don't bend the heck out of it.
Yeah, that's a big one. And then make sure you use appropriate wattage.
That's another big one.
Your extension cords.
Yep. In the manual, it actually spells out, for whatever length of extension cord you're going to run, what gauge it should be, and all the ratings. But generally, you're going to want a high quality cord with good connections, because the other issue you can have is a number of guys will have kind of a loose connection here, and if you're not completely engaged with that cord, you can have an issue where it's almost the electricity's arcing from the cord to the plug, and it can melt those. So it's always good to have a cord that has really, really tight fittings on it, so it plugs real well, but also you're using the right gauge for the length. Generally, most guys are using 25, 50-foot cords. If you're using 100 feet, you might want to add an outlet somewhere in your garage.
Yeah, that's pretty far to walk and all that. Plus, it's just it's a mess in the shop, period.
Yeah.
So, well, awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming and doing this. If you want to check out more of RUPES products, go to rupes.com. Take a look. They got the whole catalog on there, and follow them on Facebook, Instagram. You can find Dylan on there as well. And thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me out.
I'm loving this. And make sure, if you guys have any comments or questions or suggestions, put them down below. You can subscribe as well to the channel, and stay tuned for more right here on the Rag Company YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.